Yeah, so we are going to start touching upon the layers of our being. So the mind, the vital being, and the physical and also the psychic being. So we are going to start with understanding the mind. And again, it's a vast field in itself. If you plunge into it, it's a beautiful, vast field in itself. So I'm again picking up words from Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and since uh, I'll be reflecting upon these words collectively with you, so I thought I'll just put it on screen share. Yeah, so and in between, if you feel like reflecting, sharing, please unmute and share. So here, the true role of the mind, again, words of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, the true role of the mind is the formation and organization of action. It is the formative and organizing power which puts the different elements of inspiration in order. So it's very interesting to read this because Mother shares that it is not an instrument of knowledge. It can be made still and silent so that it receives knowledge. Knowledge does not come from within the mind. It receives knowledge and then uses and organize and uses the knowledge to organize life or practically implement into purpose. If it would confine only itself to that role, this role of formation, organization, arranging, receiving inspirations. So for receiving inspirations, the mind has to be still. It's like, the mind has to be empty and still so that it can receive the higher knowledge. Now, if we look at our minds, usually on a day-to-day basis, it's not the case. The mind is full of clutter usually, and then we have only flashes of inspiration in between or insights in between. So here, according to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, it appears more and more that the true purpose of the mind is to be absolutely still and silent so that it receives guidance from the higher domains and uses that guidance for day-to-day arrangements of life. So whether the guidance comes from the mystic center of the soul or from the higher consciousness. So the guidance can be from both these domains, but the purpose of the mind is to use that guidance in order to arrange life into order. And they say that it's not an instrument of knowledge. It's not that it's bringing forth the knowledge. Yeah, it's receiving the knowledge and then using that knowledge. And most of the time we feel lost because the mind is not completely absolutely silent, and we wonder what to do with our life. So can this be used in our day to day life? Because now that we are reading about it and knowing about it, can we make the mind more and more still and calm so that it becomes available to receiving the knowledge? Hmm? And we can know that mind is so good at categorizing. We want to put things in black and white, red and green. So it's the mind is very good in categorizing, and that is where it fulfills its purpose. But unfortunately, the case with us is that we use this boxing category, boxing into categories, even at wrong places where we don't need to really use them. So we abuse the function of the mind. And then the importance of reason is also very strong here. They say that when one is in contact with one's own reasoning capacity, the reason, the pure reason of intellect, again a faculty of intellect, it is a powerful control over the vital impulses. So usually we are swayed by emotions, and that is why we are in trouble most of the times, because we are swayed by emotions. We are taking emotional decisions influenced by impulses and instincts. So I may not be hungry, but the emotional impulse is so strong that I want to eat. So the body also suffers. The taste wants, I want to fulfill myself through the taste. Yeah, so I become, even eating, which is a very practical physical thing, I make it emotional eating, binge eating, as we say that. Yeah. So if we lose reasoning capacity more and more in our day-to-day life, then it appears that our life is more regulated. It's not a torture than if we are ruled by reason. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo say that the reason has to be the master of house before the psychic comes into front or the inner guidance truly takes the charge of the being. Before that, the reason has to rule. It may again fail at many times because emotions can also utilize reason for its own use. It may fail, but still it will be a well regulated life. Hmm? So here there are two uses of mind that they say, that it's a controlling force. It can control or regulate the emotions, and it is a power of organization. If I want to organize my life better, sort my life, then I can utilize the capacities of the mind. So before I go to into the function of the mind and all these faculties, let us touch upon this powers of mind, where they talk about, the different parts of the being. I'm sure some of you may have gone through it. So they talk about chitta, chit in Hindi, and they say that chit is a storehouse of memory. It is having all the impressions. Even when I was not aware, it is having all the impressions of my past time. It is the foundation on which all the other layers stand. Lies in us as a passive or potential memory. So it is like a go down of memory and impressions, the chit. Now the active memory, what it does is, the active memory selects from this go down whatever is necessary for me. Maybe I need to recollect something, so I will go back in my memory, the passive memory. I'll go back, I'll search there. The active memory will search there and look for the things that I require right now. Hmm? So he says that the passive memory does not need any training. It is just collecting impressions. But the active memory, it is like a man searching among a great mass of locked up material, and sometimes he cannot find what he wants. Often in his rapid search, he stumbles across many things which he does not have any immediate need. So if I may go back in my memory and want to find something from my childhood or somewhere, I will stumble upon images which I not do not require right now. I was looking for something else, but somehow the active memory is not trained enough. So it stumbles upon something which is not required and it gets entangled there. Now, you must have experienced this in our own reflections also. Often too, he blunders and thinks that he has found the right thing, and when it is something else, irrelevant if not valueless, on which he has laid his hand. So this is a very interesting image that he's creating for letting us know that how we search in this go down of memory, and it is the active memory that needs training and refinement. The passive memory is a go down full of everything, but when I go actively looking for it, something in the memory, I stumble upon things which I do not even require, and I get entangled there, not really realizing that this is not for what I entered into this go down. Hmm?
So, Monica, active memory is part what comes under what? It's not part of the chitta, right? Chitta is passive and potential. So, active memory कहाँ का part होएगा इसमें?
माइंड का ही पार्ट है, माइंड का ही
Okay.
पार्ट. And he's differentiating here that chit or the passive memory is different from the active memory. Both are parts of mind only.
No, okay, okay.
Yeah. It's amazing how complex the mind is. Usually we talk about mind and we think that we know what we are talking of, but it's amazing how we can actually, look at different quarters of the mind through his sharings.
Also, I wanted to ask, so चित्ता is like a potential memory. तो ये बस यही लाइफ का है कि it is eternally whatever, like like जो आपके lives after lives होते हैं वो भी उसमें potent है, like it's there in चित्ता.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So mother shares that consciousness remembers everything. It remembers all the past lives that we have. So all that potential is in us. But the thing is that forgetfulness that we have, owing to the veils of ignorance that come in front, and that is why we use the word self-realization. So there is something which I already am, but at the moment, owing to the veils of ignorance, I'm not aware of that in me. So I would resonate with what you are sharing, that it contains everything, but owing to the veils of ignorance in front and the lack of training also, I'm not able to access all that. Yeah. So this is what mother shares, that when we talk about training of the mind, this is something which needs to be trained. Yeah, it is the active memory, a higher but less perfectly developed function, which is in need of improvement. Chitta does not require any control from our end. It is by default operational, functional. Yeah. Then he talks about the second layer of the mind proper or manas. He also calls this sixth sense of Indian psychology, in which all others are gathered up. The function of the mind is to receive the images of things translated into sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, all these five senses that we have. So I touch something, and through the sense, I have some sense impression. It goes to the mind interprets and then speaks it out. So the mind is involved in this sense interpretation to receive images from senses and to translate it into again thought sensation. So I touch something and then I want to describe it. It also receives images of its own direct grasping. So where the senses directly may not be involved, maybe subtle senses. So directly I have not touched anything, or I'm not using the sense of smell, taste, or touch, but I am having direct thought impressions. That is also this function, second layer, mind proper. So the function of education here, because we are focusing on education, life education, also for kids and for ourselves, the function of education is right proper use of six senses. Mother talks about it, refinement of senses. So we don't have to shun away the senses. We have to refine the senses to see that they are not stunted or injured by disuse. The hand, for instance, now she gives an example here why art and music is so important. The hand, for instance, should be trained to reproduce what the eyes see. So whenever we are sketching or maybe looking at a view, and the moment I want to put it on paper, I see that there is a tremendous gap there. I'm not able to realistically put it on paper. And this requires training. And it gives us joy when we indulge ourselves in this training. So the hand, I remember once Anand, my little one, he was trying to make something, and he commented to me that my body is not, my hands are not listening to me because I'm thinking something else and the fingers are doing something else. So that reminded me that this requires training, that we have to do it again, observe carefully, fail again and again, and then continue at this effort of what mother shares, that the hands should be trained to reproduce what the eyes see, what an artist would do. The speech should be trained to perfect to a perfect expression of the knowledge which the whole antakarna possesses. Now you would know that many a times we have very deep inner experiences. But when we want to talk about it, we are not able to put it in words very clearly. We use many words in between which are unnecessary. So it's very good to listen to your own recording, because then you get to know what excess you keep on saying. So maybe you start with a word or a sentence and then you leave it in between. You're not able to complete it and then another one comes. So it's very important to see this gap again. How we have the knowledge, all of us, we want to say it out, express something. But then when we want to express, it is not clearly with precision expressed. So this is again refinement of the sense and the ability of mind to be very clear, precise, and exact. So then they talk about the third layer, which is intellect or buddhi, which is the real instrument of thought and that which orders and disposes of the knowledge acquired by the other parts of machine. And he says that for the purpose of education, this is very important. The part training of intellect or buddhi is very important. Reason would come here. Intellect comprises of two parts. We know the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. So both have to be trained. The function and faculties of the right side of the brain is comprehensive, creative, judgment, imagination, memory, observation. And functions of the left side of the brain, left-hand side of the brain would be critical and logical and analytical thinking. And he says that the right hand side of the brain is the master of knowledge. And the left hand side is the servant. Left hand side of the brain touches the body of knowledge, appears to touch the facts. The right side of the brain, it penetrates beyond the words. It looks at something higher than what the facts are. That is the capacity of what we call the artistic brain. The right side of the brain, intuitive, inspirational. But both are important. So we cannot say that it's only important to train the right side, which is intuitive and penetrates the soul. Even to look at the facts honestly, the logical and reasoning ability, the left side of the brain, that is also very important, crucial, very crucial. Both are essential to completeness of human reason. They have to be raised to their highest and finest working power if the education of the child is not to be imperfect and one-sided. So there are ways in which we can work upon these both sides, and educationists or teachers who work in this field, they know, they have this idea about practical exercises to use. For example, whenever I am trying to do some art or use my left hand actually, then I'm actually strengthening the right side of the brain, which is the artistic brain or more intuitive brain. And whenever I'm using the faculties of the right hand, and right hand is operated by the left side of the brain, the logical analysis, reasoning, facts, looking at facts, understanding the facts. And both are needed because there is something which is there in the words and there is something which is beyond the words. And to have a comprehensive understanding, we need both what is there in the words and also what is communicated beyond the words. And then he says, talks about the fourth layer or the faculty of the mind, which is not yet entirely developed. We don't give it a chance. That's what this song, "We Don't Need No Education" by Pink Floyd, where he says that I'm just another brick in the wall. So what happens through stunted education is that we dumb down our geniuses. And mother shares that there is a genius in everyone, but we don't nurture the capacity of that genius. We make everyone alike, same pieces of block. And in that, we suffer. So this fourth layer of faculty, which is not entirely developed in man, phenomenon of genius, intuitive perception of truth. So not a truth that I get to know by understanding or reasoning or my own abilities, but a direct perception of truth, a knowing, a deep knowing, inspiration of speech, direct vision of knowledge. You know, when you just have a revelation about something, making a man prophet of truth. So one can actually comment on things which are far-fetched because they are coming from a higher domain. So one is able to use the power to comment on things which are really far-fetched. Present generation may not be able to understand it. Maybe one understand its value after years, but the vision has been given. And these powers are rare in their higher development, though many may possess them imperfectly or by flashes. So whenever we have intuitive insights, revelations in our flashes of inspiration, it is that faculty that we are tapping in us. But we are so used up in the day-to-day muddle of life that we don't care to really develop and give time to this faculty. Yeah, so anything from here? Hmm?
So a psychic being comes from this fourth layer.
Psychic being doesn't come from the layers of the mind.
Mind, right, right, right.
Psychic
Yeah,
being is in, oh, it's a different dimension,
yeah, yeah.
but it can rule the mind. Yeah, it can have the impact on the mind.
So then this provides for that, na? Because it says intuitive and direct vision of knowledge. So I'm sure there's some connection there, no?
Absolutely. So it's all like this, you know. We cannot really, uh, so
Integrated.
yeah, totally pick them out. And then, you know, again, he describes the mind further beautifully. I'll just share here. Shweta, I've picked this up from the book that you had shared. It's a beautiful book, and I've used the elements from that book today. So the mind, you know, whenever we use the word mind, what do we mean? So he says the word mind or mental are used to connote the part of nature which has to do with cognition or intelligence, with ideas, thought perceptions, reaction of thought to things. The ordinary mind has three parts: the physical mind, the vital mind, the mind proper. So even the physical body, it has a mind of its own. It's not that the mind is located here. We cannot say that the mind is where the brain is. Yes, it is part of it, but there is also a physical mind. And mother has this book uh, where Satprem talks about the mind of the cells. So the physical mind, that part of the mind concerned with physical things only, limited by physical view because it needs to work there. So it's very limited in its direction, limited by physical view and experience of things. It mentalizes the experience brought by the contact of outward life, all the external triggers here and there. It mentalizes it, but it does not go beyond that. You know, just like a telescope. Now, telescope has a particular use, and it is very good to be specific there because with my specificity, I can be really very precise about knowing about planets and stars and everything. So this precision is necessary, and that is why this limit we often talk about how we don't want to be limited and we want to be limitless. Now we see that limit has its own purpose. So the way that telescope is limited, it serves the purpose. Hmm? So this physical mind, although it is limited, it has its purpose. It does not go beyond the physical aspect. The mechanical mind, closely connected with the physical mind, goes on repeating without use whatever has happened. So the mind of habit, that आप मुझे तो habit ही पड़ गई है कि रात को दूध पीना है. So as if we think that we don't have any control over it. My body is used to it. So we don't even think about it. We don't even give it a second thought whether I need milk or not. Yes, I have been using it mechanically for a long time, but can I question it? So these mechanical habits keep on running our life. They have their purpose, but then questioning them is also at times required when we want to change some mechanical habits. Then comes the vital mind or the desire mind, emotional, the mind of desire. It is a mind of dynamic will, action, and desire. It is occupied with force and achievement. So, force is very important because whenever we use the word vital, vital means that which is absolutely necessary. So, without force and energy or Shakti, we cannot do anything in life. So, it makes us move. Desires make me move. So, there is a purpose to desires. If I do not have a desire to earn money for my family, I would not move my ass. So it is very important. But again, desire is a helper, desire is also the bar. So if this purpose is served, it has to be let go of slowly. It is occupied with force and achievement and satisfaction and possession. So if I am desiring something, I will be very satisfied when I possess that thing. So desiring, satisfaction, possession with enjoyment and suffering. Suffering comes hand in hand. Giving and taking, growth and expansion. So this is again touching upon aspect of vital mind. Then talks about mind proper or manas, the thinking mind or intellect, concerned with ideas, as we touched upon earlier, thoughts in their own right, knowledge in their own right, functions to observe whenever we are observing our own inner movements. That is where we are training ourselves. I am observing my own inner movements. I am observing my thought. I am observing my patterns. I am inquiring my patterns. So that trains the intellect. Functions to observe, inquire, understand, judge. And both can be applied externally, also internally. I can use it in day-to-day life externally to understand, judge whenever I am looking at a flower, its patterns, how its petals are shaped, what is the color and texture. Again, all that training goes in there. So it is divided into three parts: the thinking mind or the intellect, the dynamic mind, concerned with putting out of mental forces for realization of ideas. So I may have an idea, but I will need to put an idea out through a force within me so that it can be implemented. So this force comes through this part of mind, dynamic mind. Externalizing mind, again linked with dynamic mind, but he says that it's different, concerned with the expression of ideas in life. So the dynamic mind is like a force that goes out, and then the externalizing mind is like a worker who puts it into practice, like manifestation of that idea, makes it happen. So they are quite interconnected. We cannot really all take all the threads out and really differentiate. Or maybe we can as we grow further. Yes, Shweta.
Yeah, I mean, this mind proper and the way it functions, it seems like part of vital also, vital mind. Like, if you talk about the force and energy, so it seems very interconnected. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the book by Dr. Ramesh Bijlani, he talks about the mind has two purposes: thinking and feeling. So when we talk about feeling or emotions and all that, it's actually very deeply connected with the mind also. So yes, there is absolute kind of entanglement here. Thinking and feeling are functions of the mind only, he says. So there is like I cannot really differentiate, okay, this is mind and this is my feeling. Like this, I wonder if this can happen. So thinking is absolutely interconnected with the feeling part. And then comes the higher consciousness, higher planes of mind, which are beautiful. Let me just go through it and see. Higher mind. So as if he says that between, as we fell into ignorance, layers were created like a ladder. So the supreme, or where there is no ignorance, that he calls that super mind, that comes here at the end. So the end of the ladder, if one can say, is the super mind, where there is no ignorance at all. Everything becomes one in that consciousness. So let us go from here to then connecting the mind. And mind is again very limited, although it has its own advantages, but it's full of ignorance. And in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo says it's half lit. So there is a light in the mind, but it's half lit. It's full of ignorance. So from knowledge, complete knowledge, supermind or divinity, to ladders, 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 and then comes the mind. So in between, there are many layers which we can access. And let us start from the top. Supermind. In supermind, mental divisions and oppositions cease. So there is no conflict when we are in that state of consciousness. The problems created by our dividing and fragmenting mind disappear, and truth is seen as a luminous whole. In the overmind, there is not yet the actual fall into ignorance. Overmind is a step below the supermind. So he's talking of that in the overmind, there is not yet the actual fall into ignorance, but the first step is taken. So the disconnect from the source has started. The ignorance has started, but the complete fall into ignorance has not yet happened in overmind. Its fundamental character, supermind, is knowledge by identity. So how do I become one with you? Because I am one with you. I know you through my identity with you. It is not a theory in my mind that we are all one. I can be one. It is a possibility. Knowledge by identity. And in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo mentions of that whatever he has written is knowledge by identity. He is not theorized or conceptualized about things. He has been there, done that. And that's why he can express it so beautifully. Because if I have been there, done that, I've been an eagle, and then from the eagle point of view, I can share what happens when you are an eagle. So this is what is knowledge by identity. That you are not this separate individuality which has no connection with the other. You become one with the other, you know him by identity, and then you reveal the truth. So this is the function of supermind, or this absolute consciousness. What Mother and Sri Aurobindo talk of, the supramental race. After human beings, the race which is to come is supramental race. Complete communion with the divinity. No ignorance at all. The supramental consciousness alone can truly transform the world. So if we really want no ugliness in our life, no conflict, no duality, all harmony, bliss, full of immortality, supramental consciousness is what will make it happen, can make it happen. There is no other possibility for us. So this path is only one. Then comes the layer of the overmind. It is the highest of those ranges between supermind and human mind. Yeah? It is full of light and powers. But from the point of view of what is above it, means the supermind, it is the line of souls turning away from the complete and indivisible knowledge. So again, very beautiful. So it's not that overmind is beauty, 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 but that's not the end of it. What lies above it is even more powerful and full. The fall has happened here. Something has happened which is disconnecting it from the absolute truth. So it is the line of souls turning away from the complete and indivisible knowledge and its descent towards ignorance has started. For although it draws from truth, it is here that begins the separation of aspects of truth, black and white, life and death. So the separation has started. Yeah. And then we end into complete division, which is the normal human mind, which is absolutely divided. You are different, I am different. You have your own personal life, I am my. So this division, the ordinary division. I end here, you start there. So we end where the body ends. That's what we think. So this is what is overmind. And at times when the mind is silent, it can draw from the overmind, supermind, illumined mind, intuition, as we are approaching to the lower layers. So again, supermind, overmind, and then comes intuitive knowledge. And intuition is something all of us have tasted. So at times we have been receptive, still, silent, not knowingly, maybe unknowingly. Something has come. Now that something was anyway there, but I was not available. I was full of my garbage. Owing to that emptiness that is there, something gets revealed through intuition. So intuition, he calls that intuitive mind or intuition, is the power of consciousness nearer and more intimate than the lower ranges of spiritual mind to the original knowledge by identity. So this is more intimate. I can access intuition, but the knowledge by identity at this moment I cannot access. It is too far-fetched. It gets truth in flashes and turns these flashes of truth perceptions into intuitive ideas. Intuition is always an edge or ray or outleap of a superior light. What is thought knowledge in the higher mind becomes illumination in illumined mind and direct intimate vision in intuition. So intuition is a direct knowing. I know. You get a vision, a direct knowing that this is how it functions. Maybe an example comes from within the being. A direct example. Okay, this is how it happens. Direct discernment. Here he says that it is kind of a truth vision, truth hearing, truth memory, direct truth discernment. A direct knowing. Without the use of senses, you know. You don't need to analyze, judge, observe, nothing required. You just have this knowing as a gift given to us. So again, as we go down in the lower layers, comes the illumined mind, and below that is the higher mind. So the illumined mind is no longer of higher thought, but spiritual light. Here the clarity of intelligence, its tranquil daylight, gives place or subordinates itself to an intense luster, a splendor and illumination of spirit. So these are words for us, and it is for us to practically experience this for ourselves, because words are words. If we don't touch it within our being, then doesn't matter whether there is higher mind, illumined mind, or whatever. I am not there. Yeah. So practical experiences to make the mind still, silent, receptive. Only then we can taste all these capacities of the mind. And then comes the layer which touches the mind, human mind, something loftier, purer, vaster, more powerful than reason or logic, intelligence. It is luminous thought mind whose instrumentation is through an elevated thought power, comprehensive mental sight. In the higher mind, one becomes constantly and closely aware of the self, the higher self, the one everywhere, and knows and sees habitually with that awareness. So there is a lot of, I would say, practical work that we need to do here if we are to, in this human life, taste what is our capacity. So one is just talking about it, theorizing about it, and the other is tasting the truth. Without taste, all this is just burden on my head. So we can actually relate with all this that we have read with powers within. Mother and Sri Aurobindo talks about powers within. So these are all powers which are there latent in us. But we are so busy with the ordinary that we don't really give ourselves time. And when we are tired of the ordinary, or the trivial, which we consider as trivial, that I should not be spending my time there and here and there, then we become available, and then we can implement or make use of this light and illumination in day-to-day activities, so that the life also becomes healthier and more illumined. Yeah, so please keep sharing if there is anything. Yeah. So you know how the education in the education system, I remember that I was mostly cramming. I was just memorizing. I don't know how it was with you or how it is with our children at the moment. But if you have anything to share, how your education was, were you mostly cramming, or were you also allowed to think, and they were more focus on thinking for yourself, understanding for yourself? So if you want to share about that, from that we can take it ahead.
I don't think any one of us would have had that kind of thinking for yourself and like understanding and applying that kind of education. I don't think we had, and even now, I think most of the schools don't have them. Like it's the same thing, conventional way. Yeah.
And the thing is that we still buy into that. We allow ourselves to send our children there, not realizing the importance of it.
It's because you do better when you know better, right? Like, it just works like that. Personally, yeah, even I've had a journey, like, this knowing has happened to me. Though deep inside, I always felt with my children that, oh my God, this is not what I'm liking. This is, but like there was no direction. You only knew the mainstream. Till you know better, you can't do better. So,
Yep.
gradually.
Yeah, anyone else? So let me share something in absence of anything. So it's about educating the intellect, and we'll talk about that in the document also. So just picking up a few things from Dr. Ramesh Bijlani's book, he says that whatever the world knows today is because somebody asked a question and then found out answers for it. For example, this gravitation thing, Newton asked a question. Yet, what the schooling does is to kill curiosity, and it neglects teaching how to think. We teach facts, we examine the student on facts. So, whatever examination happens in the school, so have you crammed enough? Is your memory good enough? Hmm? And assume that the student will somehow learn how to think for himself. So the education, the conventional education, it is how it is that mostly it focuses on memory, facts, learning facts. And he says that memory is the lowest function of the intellect. It is a part of intellect and important, but it is the lowest function of intellect. The higher capacity of thinking about for myself, analyzing things, understanding, observing better and better, those are things which we almost, as Shweta was sharing, since we don't know better, we completely ignore that in education. And if we get to know better, can we allow it to be a part of our day-to-day life? And it requires a little slow down, I would say. Then I cannot be in the same rat race if I want to experiment with something new. Because the rat race will just take me again somewhere where I don't even want to go. So I feel that it requires a lot of slowing down if I want to experiment with the different aspects of it. And then he talks about application of whatever we have understood. He says that understanding what one knows is not enough. Okay, I understand Gita, but my life is rubbish. So he says that understanding what one knows is also not enough. One should also be able to apply what one knows. Now, this is where we feel the gap mostly, either in day-to-day challenges or on spiritual path. Application needs the mental ability to spot in a situation the opportunity to apply what one knows. But one has to be really slowed down in order to see the opportunity and to be able to apply something new that one has understood. So the example that he gives is that imagine that there is a doctor who has understood through his books about diabetes. Now he needs to have the capacity by looking at more and more and more patients, that when a patient comes and talks about some symptoms, although the patient will be describing very, very vaguely the symptoms that has experiencing, but the doctor should be able to apply his bookish knowledge so that he can read the symptoms and pick up that, okay, where it is that he can use the ability to diagnose better. And it comes through experiencing again and again, through going through failures, through seeing more and more patients. Only then he'll be able to connect this link between what he has read and understood and what happens practically. So again, I think we have to allow ourselves to go through a lot of mistakes also here, because without mistakes we will not be able to be crisp, precise and exact. Many a times I will misdiagnose maybe, but that is again the part of journey. And then he talks beautifully about precision. Again, precision is a faculty of mind. We will learn here, again in the document also, that how to be exact, how to be clear, how to be precise. Because I may want to say something, but I may speak for 10 minutes and people don't get my idea what I am saying. So this is something which we can refine and refine and refine and refine. I think somebody was saying, so maybe somebody was sharing from something from Muji, that you should be so light and precise that you should be able to give your autobiography on a little piece of paper or maybe one line. So that precise and clear and crisp one can be. So let me just read this out, because this is very beautiful what I'm reading here. He says, is there something in the, I'm not able to see it on the screen. Okay, there's something in the chat. I'll just, where is my chat? Okay. Yes, Jasmine, we are with you. Yeah. So this is something, Jasmine, that we need to work upon if we want to. This is again refinement of our faculties of speech, action, behavior. So this is all lying latent within us, and all of us can work on it. So the thing is that we are starting from darkness, and it's okay to allow ourselves to grow in degrees, in perfection, in clarity, in speech, in exact precision. Hmm? So he says that conveying thoughts clearly and briefly is not just an art, it is also a mental habit which can be cultivated. So there is hope for all of us. No, it can be cultivated. No one is born with it. If I'm giving myself the right environment, allowing myself to do mistakes, opportunities for myself, this is what debates, or whenever we discuss a topic, debate about a topic, this is how we, and then we listen to it. Maybe we have the recording, we listen to it, and then I see, okay, okay, what was I saying? I was wanting to say something else, but I was expressing it so vaguely. So again, this needs a lot of courage to look at one's own present status and then to improve it further. Hmm? So the mother has made the important point that the poorly educated or uneducated cannot think without speaking. So they have to first talk things out, and as they are talking things out, they are thinking. Otherwise, they cannot think in the head silently. So she says that is why they use more words but convey less. They talk for too long, they get boring, but still cannot make a point properly. So precision in the use of words is important for conveying differences in shades of meaning rather than absolute differences. So a still higher level of command over language makes it possible to teach without being preachy, to be firm without being bossy, to be respectful without being obsequious. I think Yasho would know the word obsequious. Yasho, any reflection on this word?
Monica, if I'm not mistaken, unclear, something which is difficult to understand, but Googling it would be better.
Okay. Okay. So she's sharing here, he's Dr. Ramesh Bijlani, to be respectful without being obsequious. I think we'll have to look it up. Uh, to complain without being annoying. So this is an art, that we have to develop. To complain without being annoying. To be satirical without being cynical. So let me read it again, because I think this is something which we can use for inspiration. He says a still higher level of command over language makes it possible to teach without being preachy, to be firm without being bossy, to be respectful without being obsequious, to complain without being annoying, and to be satirical without being cynical. Huh? So this is our possibility. And if we are able to look at where we are right now, very, very factually, then we can see that there is much we can refine in ourselves. But mostly we take it on our heart. That is how we have grown, that we take it on our heart that, oh my God, I don't even want to look at it, the ugliness that may be there. Because whenever we talk of ugliness, we consider it very inferior, or link it with shame, or why are you there. But while if we just take very objectively that, okay, this is my current standard and here is where I want to go, without attaching emotions to it, then I think there is a progress that we can make. And that is how I think scientists would work. If they attach emotions to every experiment they are doing, they won't be able to go too far into precise understanding of what they are trying to understand.
So, Monica, I have one question. So, how does then this work that some people while writing they very clear, they write, but it's only while speaking that the thoughts are. So if it's only the mind, so then the thoughts flow beautifully in writing, but it's only while speaking. So it's like some development of that faculty where it where it can connect to speech also, right?
Absolutely.
So is it then like which few have and few don't have, or everything can be worked towards?
I think, Shweta, you would know, I think we don't nurture these abilities. The fact that we are so lost here and there, mother talks about this, that we are so dispersed in thoughts that we don't care to nurture the abilities. So lost in the trivia that we forget to nurture the genius in us.
And especially I think because it's all part of development in the young age, I think having conscious and aware parents makes a lot of difference here. To provide that environment is, I think, where the parents are aware of all this and they can nurture this during the developmental stage, I think. Yeah.
And that's why the early years of education are so important. So important. The free play is important, free progression is important, understanding of emotions, and that is the base that we'll be using when we will grow into adults.
Absolutely.
Monica, a question.
Mhm.
While attempting refining of the senses, what does one use as a reference? For example, if I want to translate a scene into a painting, my artistic ability would be different than my artistic take on it. For example, how do I express it in a few splashes or intricate detail? So, I mean, if I aspire to be a Van Gogh, is that the correct way to go?
What do you
Is,
what do you think, Yeshu? What comes to you if you think about it?
to tell you the truth, whatever instinctively comes to me should be good. If even if the splashes appeal to me, I should be happy with it, right?
Yeah.
And if it gives me some sort of satisfaction, some sort of joy, I feel that this is a creation which is worth the time and effort I've put in. But then again, the societal pressures and the conditioning that we've been through. So we aspire for, as somebody else was talking about in a previous session, that we aspire for the acknowledgement of our work. Yeah. So one clearly understands the distinction, but why does the social conditioning keep on interfering in our journey towards refinement? And if it does, which is a fact, how does one really overcome it?
So I think there are two questions, Yashu, that you are putting forward. One is that okay, if instinctively I want to do the art form in flashes, which comes naturally to me, I should allow myself to do it. And then if you talk about further suppleness of this artistic ability, huh? There I would add that mother says near to far. Education is near to far. So what is near to me? That if it comes in flashes, I am able to give it expression like how Van Gogh would do. Hmm? But if I want to make my artistic expression even more supple and wider, then I would experiment even with the other possibilities of art to do it as realistically as possible, for example. So that would be near to far. That if I just do it in impressions like a Van Gogh would do, that is very natural to me, instinctive to me, and I should nurture it. That is near. And what is far, that if there is a weakness in the sense that I'm not really able to put exactly that down on paper, I also allow myself to work on that so that I become supple in the artistic expression. So that is the first part that you were talking, and then you connected it to whenever I express something, then there is also a need for social acknowledgement. And you are saying that, if I am not understood wrongly, you are saying that this need for social acknowledgement First of all, we can talk about that need. Why is it there? It's actually, it gets entangled in the emotional part. So the artistic ability gets entangled in the what we call as the beggar or the ego part within me, and we don't even realize how it happens, but it happens. And you were saying that the society also interferes with the refining. So that part I'm not clear what you wanted to say there.
So what I was saying was that the conditioning that the society and our experiences in life have given us, it interferes with my progress. This need for acknowledgement pulls me back. So if I'm working on refining a particular aspect of my being, I'm trying to reconnect, but then out of the blue, this jolt, which I need the craving of, well, I need acknowledgement, I need this, I need that, and then it pulls you down again, and then again it's a uphill task. But yeah, so I mean, of course, one understands that one has to be at it. Aspiration and just be at it would work. This is quite frustrating.
So, Yashu, you have shared a beautiful point. Let me just enter us into an activity here, the point that you have shared. So, Mother and Sri Aurobindo talk about how to make the mind supple. And then they talk about a thing which even I would say, I'm exploring more and more in my life, I would say, through all the experiences that life gives. So, Mother talks about thesis and antithesis. Some of you may have heard about it. Hmm? How to make the mind supple. Take a thesis, take anything which is extremely opposite to it, and then you debate about it or talk about it in such a manner that they synthesize. They seem to be now one and connected. So the thing that you touched upon, that the need for social acknowledgement, or this want out of conditioning from the society, the acknowledgement from society, or approval, one can say in short terms, the want for approval pulls me down. Okay, so you are saying, imagine that one party is saying the want for approval pulls me down or interferes in my progress. The other party is saying the want for approval actually takes me higher. So this seems like opposing debates, like this opposing parties. So can we today reflect upon it in a way that one person talks about it, that want for approval or this craving for approval, which I see in me, is progressive for me, and the other party is saying that this craving for approval, which has come through conditioning, is regressive for me, it takes me down. So can we collectively share on it, because I'm not sure where it takes us, but let us talk about it because this appears very interesting.
Sure. So yes, so this the craving takes me away from my path because um, my focus changes, my focus it shakes, and the practices that I was indulging in, the path I have realized is a lot to do with what is happening within you. So if the within is not stable, it is hankering for something, some sort of thing from outside, then it is not able to, progress in the direction that one should. That's my take.
So imagine that Yasho is an artist. She's
Yeah.
drawing out of her own goodwill. She wants to draw and it gives her joy. Now, owing to the fact that there is conditioning from parents or society, she enters into competitions or she gets rewards and whatever acknowledgement from the society, and that shifts her focus to more to rewards rather than to the progress in art. Am I putting it right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And if
And
the rewards are missing, then a
yeah,
sense of self-doubting, if the rewards are missing, if one is not able to, yeah.
Yeah, please complete your sentence. If
I was saying if the rewards are missing, for example, if some person gets the rewards, then the lure of rewards, more rewards. But if the rewards are missing, if one is not able to get those rewards, whatever may be the reason, one is not good enough, that too, but one does aspire and desire for those rewards, then this sense of self-doubt, looking down on yourself, in the poor victim mentality seeks in.
fine. So
Yeah.
what happens next? Let's take it forward.
Yeah.
So I was drawing or doing some kind of art. My focus shifted to rewards. When the rewards were not coming, I started to feel this lack of sense of worth in me. Now, what next would happen according to you?
Now, ideally, one should be working at it, refining oneself further. But what if the morale dips down so low that it becomes a vicious cycle? And, it's another thing to lament about. It's another thing to beat yourself about, that you're not putting in the work. You don't have the capability, and second, you're not putting in the work, but you still desire for the thing. I mean, you're stupid.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I am again rephrasing what you are sharing. So my sense of worth got dependent on the rewards I was receiving.
Yeah.
Through the art. And when the rewards stopped coming, my sense of worth went down.
Yeah.
And I started to think, what is wrong with me? Am I not good enough? The self-doubt part that you are sharing.
Yes.
So I became entangled in the trap of self-doubt, and being always lacking in something, as if I'm not good enough.
Yes. And Monica, what I was trying to get at is that even in this path of, finding yourself, when one perhaps intellectually knows that you're already there, the psychic within. So it's just, you need to open up. It's there for your reach. But then if the self-doubt creeps in, then you don't even feel worthy of reaching there, grasping the real yourself.
Yes, Yasho, completely with you. And it's not for the psychic being that relief from suffering is required, because the psychic never suffers.
Yeah.
So absolutely with you that what requires relief is this restless state of the mind, which we call as ego. So the suffering does not matter to the psychic. The soul can never suffer. Soul is content with the divinity it has.
True.
But it is very important for us as minds that we are, to relax ourselves and immerse ourselves back to stillness, so that the suffering does not continue. Yeah, so let's hear from others also on this. I think Jasmine wanted to share. Yeah, Jasmine, please.
Yeah, as usual, I'm trying to figure out words to express. So, what Yasho was saying, I have the exact same thing. And I sometimes laugh. I'm like, I paint beautiful things in my dreams and I design beautiful stuff in my imagination, but I can't put it down. But, I have been chasing this for a while because I love, I think at some point as a kid, I probably liked art. And I even took an art class as an adult. I'm like, you know what, let me go try it. But I went to the art class, and as much as I was so excited to try it and do it, and when I was in the class, it was such a heavy moment. It was so heavy. I think I drew what I had to draw, but there was nothing sort of enjoyment, the lightness that was in my mind or anything that I felt, but it was very physical. And this was a couple of years ago, and I tried so many times after that to like sit with it. So I've been exploring it. So just sharing what you shared today, I think, so what Yasho was saying, intellectually or in my mind, I understand that it's related to self-worth and all that. So I went step further when I'm literally sitting with pen and paper or, you know, the paintbrush and I'm trying to paint, I feel this freezing and it's very physical. And I think where you say about mind is not just mind up there, it's in your body. You know, it's something physical. So on further, I think exploring or deconstruction, I also realized, and as a kid, I like drawing, I like doing artwork. And I remember maybe I went to some competition or something, you know, and I see where it's in my subconscious somewhere, but I still need to explore it. And I thought maybe you have some insight to suggest what can be done or how we can, you know, kind of move past it or how I can explore it, because I feel very stuck there. So I think I remember that time when I used to like, I really enjoyed doing art and painting. And I even remember one time, I think I was in first grade or second grade, and I drew a purple car. And my teacher basically put a big cross on it. She goes, "There is no purple car." What do you mean by purple car? I mean, I don't remember it exactly the frame, but I kind of remember that painting and, you know, her crossing it. And then she told me to draw another one. And God knows how we take impressions as a kid either. But like, it's like something in me that shuts down. And even though I'm so conscious about it, but I haven't done it recently in the last 2 years or so that I'm more aware to actually paint and draw. But to me, it's very physical. So it's not intellectually, mentally, I'm ready to explore, but it's like my hands, my fingers move, but my hands don't, you know, how your kid said it, it's not, my body's not listening to me. So to me, it's very, so when you talked about it, the mind is not in your, it's just not in your head, it's something in your body, it's more. And that's where something I feel stuck at, but I'm okay to explore that. I'm curious to see where this takes me. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah.
Hi, Monica. Hi, this is Saurabh. Sorry, I have little bad network today. I have a lot of questions. I'm not confused today. जब हम बात कर रहे हैं कि आई हैव ए क्रेविंग, आई हैव इंटरेस्ट, तो वो कौन है? वो मन है या मैं हूँ? मैं हमेशा कंफ्यूज रहता हूँ।
आप एक बात बताओ, जब आप चाय पीने के लिए उठते हो तो कौन जा रहा है?
मन।
मन उठ के जा रहा है?
मन ही तो बोला चाय चाहिए।
हाँ, लेकिन उठ के कौन जा रहा है?
बॉडी।
बॉडी। तो बॉडी मन की बात सुन रही है।
राइट।
हाँ, तो बस बात क्लियर है, वही है।
तो वही क्रेविंग, तो मतलब the confusion I had is whatever I do in life, whatever is always a mind's work. मैं एब्सोल्यूट तो कुछ हूँ ही नहीं, उसका तो मुझे रोल दिखता ही नहीं कुछ, वो तो ऐसा होता है भूत बन के बैठा हुआ है। मतलब फॉर एग्जांपल आई थिंक
एब्सोल्यूट, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय एब्सोल्यूट?
एब्सोल्यूट मतलब जो ऑब्जर्व करता है क्या हो रहा है लाइफ में, जो हमें बनना है, जो हमारी रियलिटी है। मतलब
तो आपकी अगर रियलिटी है तो वो आपको बनना कैसे है? आप तो वो हो ही।
हाँ, मतलब उसको जानू कैसे, मतलब हाउ टू अंडरस्टैंड कि मैं ये माइंड की जो भी चित्त की जो भी वृत्तियां हैं वो मैं नहीं हूँ, जो भी क्रेविंग मुझे हो रही है चाय पीने की या जो भी हो रही है वो माइंड की है। तो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज कि अगर मुझे ड्राइंग बनाने की भी क्रेविंग हो रही है तो वो माइंड की क्रेविंग हुई है, मेरी खुद की क्रेविंग है? वो
ये मेरी खुद की और माइंड की बात समझ नहीं आ रहा मेरे को।
वही तो मुझे समझ नहीं आ रही है, सॉरी फॉर दैट। यू नो, मुझे हमेशा लगता है कि वॉट एवर आई स्पीक, लाइक अभी एज आई एम स्पीकिंग टू यू, ये मेरा माइंड का मैटर है। अगर मेरा माइंड अच्छी बातें सोचेगा तो मैं अच्छी बातें बोलूंगा, अगर खराब बातें सोचेगा तो खराब बातें बोलूंगा। लेकिन जो कुछ बोलता नहीं है, जो सिर्फ ऑब्जर्व करता है, वो जो कि मैं जो रियल में हूँ, उसका रोल क्या है मेरी लाइफ में?
नहीं सौरभ, हम रियल में दोनों चीजें हैं। तो हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि मैं माइंड नहीं हूँ, मैं इमोशन नहीं हूँ, मैं तो वो हूँ जो सच्चिदानंद है। ये अपने आप को ना बेवकूफ बनाने वाली बात हो जाती है। Why? Because see, if I truly am Satchidanand, then should not it be reflected in my mind, in my emotions, in my
राइट।
ना? तो ये कहना कि दिमाग अलग है, इमोशंस अलग है और मैं कुछ और हूं जो ब्रह्म है, ये बेवकूफी की बात है। Yes, we are that observer. You are absolutely right. But that observer does not need my interference. That observation goes on and ceaselessly, endlessly. उसमें मेरा कोई हस्तक्षेप की जरूरत नहीं है, मेरे इंटरफेरेंस की जरूरत नहीं है। You know, where we need our interference is to allow the light of Satchidanand to seep into the mind, emotions, and physical. This is where we do manipulation. हमको लगता है we are doing manipulation to fool others, but we are fooling ours only, ourselves only. You know, so to make the mind absolutely calm, clear, and still is also my possibility. But मैं उधर जाती ही नहीं हूँ. मैं उधर नहीं जाऊंगी. मैं सारे तरह के इधर उधर के हथियार अपना लूंगी, all the tools. But मैं उधर नहीं जाऊंगी क्योंकि पता है वहां पे तो भैया, you know, in silence the ego dissolves. But the ego does not want to get dissolved. So silence is very khatarnak for the ego. Stillness is absolutely khatarnak for the ego.
तो मुनका अगेन सारे शायद पहले डिस्कस, व्हाट इज द पर्पस ऑफ लाइफ इन दैट केस? हमारा पर्पस क्या है लाइफ जीने का, क्या होना चाहिए?
आपका अभी है कोई पर्पस? क्या
आई
लगता
थिंक, मुझे लगता था हाँ एक है, पर शायद मैं कंफ्यूज हो गया हूं अभी. मुझे लगता था कि मेरा पर्पस ये है कि मैं अपनी रियलिटी को जानूं, अपने को मन के बियॉन्ड जानूं.
बिल्कुल. और अभी क्या कंफ्यूजन हो गया?
और मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि वो जो रियलिटी जिसको मैं जानना चाहता हूँ वो कुछ है ही नहीं, बस मन ही मन है, उसको ही संभालना है मुझे.
तो कंफ्यूजन तो नहीं है, बहुत क्लियर ही है जो आप बता रहे हो. आपका जो उद्देश्य है वो हम सबका उद्देश्य है, अपने आप को जानना. और हम इतने अनंत हैं कि हम बस इस रास्ते पे शुरू हो सकते हैं, खत्म नहीं होगा ये रास्ता. जैसे हम कहते हैं ना कि ब्रह्म अनंत है, तो अनंत को हम ये थोड़ी ना कह सकते हैं एक दिन की हाँ पूरा जान लिया, क्योंकि वो तो लिमिटेड हो गया ना.
राइट.
So if I say that I know this cup fully, it means the cup is very limited. But even if I talk about this cup, the beauty is, even if I talk about this so-called limited thing as the cup, the more deeper you go into it, the level of atoms, protons, neutrons, आप देखोगे कि वहां की मिस्ट्री अभी भी रिजॉल्व नहीं है. तो ये कप को भी मैं पूरी तरह से जानती नहीं हूँ. People are in search of God's particle. है ना. तो आप देखोगे कि ऑल्दो ये दिखने में देखो कितना लिमिटेड है ना, छोटा सा तो है बिल्कुल, 10 रुपए का आ जाए, कितने रुपए का भी आ जाए, बहुत लिमिटेड है. बट अगर आप इसके डीप में जाओ, स्टडी करो इसको, यू विल एंड अप टू एटम्स, प्रोटॉन्स, न्यूट्रॉन्स दैट द माइंड कैन नो. एंड इवन देयर द मिस्ट्री इज येट अनरिजॉल्व्ड. सो हम जो अपने आप को जानते हैं वो इस कप की तरह ही है कि ऊपर ऊपर का पता है, अभी डेप्थ में कभी हिम्मत ही नहीं हुई जाने की. और जब हम जानते हैं अपने आप को तो वो स्लोली जानते चले जाते हैं. फिर हम हाउ टू नहीं पूछेंगे, हम बस घुस जाएंगे अंदर.
Is it fine to say कि to know our true self, the only way is to control our mind?
To understand, I would say, Saurabh.
Okay.
To understand the mind. अब देखो ना ये कैपेसिटी, we have the mind, we use the mind, and then the mind also has the capacity to understand itself. This capacity is very unique. The mind cannot know truth. जो आप कह रहे हो ना सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन की जो बात कर रहे हो, आप ये बात कर रहे हो कि मैं, जैसे जो आजकल ये जो चल रहा है, साइंटिस्ट जो कर रहे हैं, गॉड पार्टिकल ढूंढना है उनको. ठीक है. तो एरोगेंस देखिए यहाँ पे, एरोगेंस कितनी है ह्यूमन बींग्स की, दैट आई एम ह्यूमन बींग created by whatever, and what do I want to have in this hand, limited hand? God's particle. It is impossible. So the mind cannot know truth. When the mind dissolves back into the ocean of truth, the truth gets revealed. So that is why we get frustrated so easily. Mind cannot know truth, because it is from the truth that the mind is projected. समझ रहे हो? जैसे एक इमेजिन करो कि ओशियन है, ओशियन से एक वेव प्रोजेक्ट हुई है आउटसाइड, वेव इज प्रोजेक्टेड. नाउ द वेव कैनॉट नो द ओशियन. Wave is too limited. It's very limited in space and time. Once the wave goes back into the ocean, it knows itself as the ocean. So this is human arrogance, which says that I am the mind and I know what the truth is. It is not possible. Truth is not an object to be known. All that mind can know is limited versions of truth. And that is why again and again we talk of silence, stillness. Because in stillness, the mind disintegrates. It goes back into the ocean of our true being, जिसकी आप बात कर रहे थे, Satchidanand. It goes back there. And then the truth shines out. When the mind comes up again, it says, I know the truth, I tasted it. So that is human arrogance. Mind can never know the truth. Truth gets revealed when the mind is not.
Got it. I think it's a vast topic. I think let me reflect further and
Yeah.
get back. Yeah.
Take your time.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Monica, I found exactly what you were saying. So I found that reading from Sri Aurobindo, which says, the mind has to be silent and attentive to receive knowledge from above and manifest it, for it is an instrument of formation, of organization and action, and it is in these functions that it attains its full value and real usefulness. So while you were talking, I just found this. Yeah.
More and more, it appears very, very important for us. The importance of being absolutely still, calm, and silent. So it is not in stillness, in calmness, that is where the truth gets revealed. Then the mind becomes a receptacle to receive the truth. But most of the times we are just frustrated that, oh my God, why am I not able to understand truth? Why am I not able to understand truth? The mind cannot grapple, it cannot grasp truth. Because that would mean that truth is something which can be grasped. But truth is divine, truth is infinite. How can infinite be grasped? So it is a paradox. And we are frustrated. God's particle, I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating or feeling, God's particle can never be found. Because that would be reducing God into one little, okay, this is God's particle. This brings rise to everything. It is not possible. That would defy the very fact that the divine is infinite. Because when we were growing up as children, we used to see that, okay, atom is the basic block of human cell, or the atom is the basic block. फिर उसके आगे भी पता लगने लग गया, अच्छा प्रोटॉन, इलेक्ट्रॉन, न्यूट्रॉन, उसके भी अंदर पता लगने लग गया, अच्छा ये अब उसके भी अंदर. So there is no end to this mystery, because then it will not be mystery anymore. And that's why this little human being that we are, it's so mysterious. We think that we are limited by the body, but even when we go deeply study the body, it's full of mystery. Yes, there might be some parts which are totally revealed by science, but still it is full of mystery. And that's why we are able to kind of bow down our head to the mystery. Otherwise, we are the king, I know the best. So it's beautiful that the mystery remains, so that we have the capacity to bow down our heads that, oh, you know the better, I don't know. Yeah, so any last reflections, any comments? And what happens is that the mind becomes frustrated. It cannot stand the mystery. How come this thing I'm not understanding? It cannot stand it. That's where we talk about the ego. You know, the ego wants to say, I know, and it requires more strength to say that, oh my God, I know a bit, but this is beyond my understanding. So there we allow truth to be, that yes, there is something more powerful, more mysterious, that this little instrument of mind cannot truly know ever. Yes, it can know in bits, pieces, expand, supple, flexible, you know, all that can expand. But this expansion is limitless because our true being is limitless. Feels beautiful even to talk about it, you know, and reflect upon it, the mystery that we are. And यहाँ पे, you know, Saurabh, what you were sharing in the chat window, feeling helpless to control, it can also be talked in other aspect. Whenever I am feeling that the thoughts are just coming and I am not in charge, it's not true. I want something from those thoughts. So this is another way of looking at it. There must be some dishonesty there or something, that you are having a rasa out of those thoughts.
मुझे तो लगता है जिस दिन मेरी लाइफ की थॉट्स कंट्रोल हो जाए मैं स्वर्ग से सुधार जाऊं, मतलब बेस्ट लाइफ, बेस्ट डे ऑफ माय लाइफ,
स्वर्ग मत सिधारना भाई, तब तो
मतलब आई मीन मोक्ष मिल गया मुझे उस दिन.
Yeah.
बट यू आर राइट, शायद आई एम हैविंग सम फन, और कुछ भी कुछ रस हो रहा है जिसकी वजह से मुझे लगता है कि वो मुझे कंट्रोल करते हैं. मे बी इसे डीप, मतलब शायद रिफ्लेक्शन चाहिए बहुत ज्यादा.
You know, Sri Aurobindo and Mother say that on the path of integral yoga, nirvana और जो मोक्ष की आप बात कर रहे हैं, मोक्ष from the me and my story or the ego, nirvana is the first step in integral yoga. It's not the last step. तो उसके बाद हमें स्वर्ग नहीं सिधारना, उसके बाद यहाँ काम करना है.
Nice.
We need illumined Saurabh here who can work on the, you know, battlefield.
So, Monica, I have a question. Okay, through all these levels of mind, uh, what I understand is there is something called supermind, where you see the truth as a luminous whole, or like something like that. So then, is it that when we're talking about integral education, we are working towards taking the mind to that level, and parallelly the psychic being is developed, or is it because see, when we talk about so many layers, different layers of the mind, I'm like, this intuitive mind comes in that fourth layer, जो like वो जीनियस, जैसे आपने कहा कि वो जीनियस का भी पार्ट, like फोर्थ लेयर में आपको समझ आता है कि यू हैव एन इंट्यूटिव परसेप्शन, एक ट्रुथ का, जिसमें आपको जो, हाँ, एक जीनियस का जो होता है वो भी है माइंड में. देन वी रीच सुपर माइंड ऑल्सो. सो ये सब, लाइक यू ऑलवेज से द साइकिक बीइंग इज द किंग, एंड ऑल दीज आर लाइक मिनिस्टर्स हेल्पिंग the other parts, mental, vital, and physical being, they are the ministers. So ये सारा integral education में we are developing, or is all this when they get developed then psychic being comes forward?
No, so it's not, I would say it's not like that when they get developed, then the psychic being would come forward. Not like that. If we walk on the way of bringing the psychic forward, it is called psychic transformation. So this is another aspect, but the journey does not end after psychic transformation. Mother and Sri Aurobindo also talk about spiritual transformation, which is another step after the psychic transformation. So I would connect supermind in its full luminosity to spiritual transformation,
Okay.
where you are one with the divine. While the psychic being, when it comes forward, psychic is the spokesperson of the divine.
Yeah, come again.
They say that psychic being is the spokesperson of the soul or the divine. So it is the closest light that is available in darkness of mind and emotions.
Hmm.
It is the
So
closest
that's
and most.
huh.
Yeah, please share.
Yeah, so that's how, like, if you feel that you get glimpse of this knowingness, so your psychic being is trying to guide you or direct you in small glimpses, not like always. So that is still available to all of us, but developing our mind to this super mind is a process which needs like a proper effort and okay.
Bilkul, bilkul. And mind, at many times, mind becomes absolutely silent or receptive, and then it gets glimpses from the higher domains of mind. And that is not connected to your psychic being actually. So
Okay.
my psychic being may not be in front, and yet
Uh-huh.
I have intuitions.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Birenji, this point about psychic being is a whole revelation in itself. Shortly I can talk about it, but we will talk about it in later, in stages in this series. So psychic being refers to our true individuality. I can share that session with you where I discuss this. uh, according to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, soul is the center around which our true individuality develops. Soul is the, जैसे कहते हैं ना, परमात्मा का अंश, divine अंश that we have, that is the soul, spark of soul, and around it develops a true individuality which learns all the experiences from the previous lives. It is collecting and becoming purer and refiner. So there is an individuality developing around it. That is what we call psychic being. It's a very wise, you can say it's the wise person in you. It's the wisdom in you that speaks. And all of us have that access. But the thing is that owing to our conditioning and masks that we wear, this true individuality gets masked. So we have to go through a process so that it can reveal itself many a times. Many a times through a event, life event happening, a tragic event, or maybe some experience that you go through, psychic being can come to front. And you may not even be aware, you may not know the word psychic being, but yet you're working through the psychic being. So my knowledge of psychic being does not say that I have the psychic in front, while another person may be working through the psychic, but he may not be aware of the word psychic being. So psychic being is our inner truth, inner guidance. That is what we are working. So integral education or integral yoga is centered around that. All the instruments, the mind, the emotions, the physical being, can they listen to the dictate of this inner voice or the psychic voice? Is that possible? Because if we don't do that, we undergo this process of suffering and being swayed by everything. So this is what integral yoga is about, that it is integral, it is like unified. Psychic is the anchor of this yoga. With the psychic, like, the mind gets the guidance, the emotions gets the guidance, and the body gets the guidance, and then they walk along this path. So just shortly touching upon that. Yes, anyone? Jasmine, you unmuted, you want to share something?
No, it was just by accident.
Oh,
Thanks. Just listening. Thanks.
so shall we end it here today?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks everyone. Thank you for sharing, reflecting, and joining the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.